U.S. President Donald Trump's journey to the World Economic Forum in Davos was briefly disrupted after Air Force One was forced to return to the U.S. shortly after takeoff. However, after a brief disruption, Trump is now on his way to Davos. Before boarding, Trump said he expects a successful visit and will represent the United States of America strongly at the global summit in Davos. Just days ahead of Davos, Trump reignited tensions by threatening tariffs on Denmark and 7 NATO allies over Greenland, accusing Copenhagen of ignoring Russian threats and NATO warnings. Meanwhile, European Commission chief has warned that new tariffs could push transatlantic ties into a downward spiral, vowing a united and firm European response, which we're already seeing take shape ahead of Trump's visit to Davos.
So I'm going to Davos. I believe it'll be very successful. The trip, the country's never done better. We have $18 trillion plus coming in. We've never had anything like it, and no country has had anything like it. Prices are way down. Gasoline now is $1.99 in a lot of places. And frankly, nobody's seen anything like this. So it's really good, but this will be an interesting trip.
Mr. President, are you committed to keeping the U.S. in NATO?
I've had such a good relationship. I've made it so much better, so much stronger. It's so good now. NATO is so much stronger now. I don't agree with a lot of the things they've done, but that was done before I got there. I think NATO's been good. Sometimes it's overrated, sometimes it's not. But we have a strong NATO. When I came here, we had a weak NATO. We had a NATO at 2%, and they weren't paying. You had a nothing NATO. NATO's, whether you like it or not, it's only as good as we are. If NATO doesn't have us, NATO is not very strong.
How far are you willing to go to acquire Greenland?
You'll find out.
How far are you willing to go to acquire Greenland?
You'll find out.
On Arctic sovereignty, we stand firmly with Greenland and Denmark and fully support their unique right to determine Greenland's future. Canada strongly opposes tariffs over Greenland and calls for focused talks to achieve our shared objectives of security and prosperity in the Arctic.
Without collective governance, cooperation gives way to relentless competition. Competition from the United States of America through trade agreements that undermine our export interests, demand maximum concessions, and openly aim to weaken and subordinate Europe, combined with an endless accumulation of new tariffs that are fundamentally unacceptable.
Joining me live is Aditya Rajkol from the newsroom. Aditya, there's no other way to look at this for now, momentarily, than the great Davos divorce, where the US allies are now drawing a red line on Trump's Greenland Gambit.
Well, certainly, Vedika. Who would have thought such red lines being drawn between Europe and United States, which have been long allies strategically and otherwise for a very long time when it comes to trade, when it comes to military alliances, etc. But the kind of statements that have been coming in clearly indicates that Greenland is going to be, has been, and perhaps after Trump's speech will be the main focus area during the Davos, the World Economic Forum. Of course, we know that Donald Trump had to turn back because of the faulty aircraft. There was a technical snag, and there will be a 3-hour delay now to the Trump speech likely in Davos. But that doesn't leave the fact that he is certainly going to focus more on the changing global order, the way the tariffs have been imposed, not just on India and many other countries, but now over the Greenland issue on 8 European countries as well as the United Kingdom. So that is going to be the top focus, really. But immediately after the Trump speech, there is a big reception in which 7 Indian CEOs of top companies have been invited as well. There will be other global corporate honchos as well. But the big debate, really, over the last 24 hours, there have been several statements from the Canadian Prime Minister to the French President opposing Trump's theatrics on Greenland. But Trump maintains that he has done whatever he could for NATO and he will annex Greenland, and that is for the national security purpose.
Aditya Rajkol, thanks for joining me on that story. Of course, we have our team in Davos that will bring you all the updates as soon as Donald Trump lands there. I have Mr. Smith, Cormac Smith, joining me live from London, a former British diplomat, as Donald Trump arrives in Davos and Europe draws a clear red line against his Greenland Gambit, testing allied unity at a time and at a moment of heightened geopolitical stakes. Mr. Smith, thank you so much for joining me here on Breaking Ground on NDTV 24/7. Let's take a step back before we take 2 steps forward to understand what to expect once Trump gets to Davos. What is Donald Trump actually trying to achieve by floating this Greenland takeover, sir? Security leverage, resources, or is he negotiating theatre?
Vedika, first, can I say thank you very much for having me on. It's a real privilege to join you. To address your question, look, there are greater minds than mine, cannot tell you exactly what Donald Trump wants, but we need to look at a few factors. America, under a 1951 agreement, has all the military access to Greenland that it wants. At one stage during the Cold War, it had 17 military bases. It now just has one. It could reactivate all those 17 and it could build more. And the Kingdom of Denmark would, as a NATO ally, would be completely cooperative. America also has the ability, with the cooperation of Denmark, to mine for rare earth metals in Greenland, which is becoming more possible now, unfortunately, as the earth is warming. So it's very hard to see the sense in Donald Trump's argument. There is a school of thought that Donald Trump wants to go down in history as the American president who made the greatest single increase to the size of the United States of America by annexing Greenland and taking Greenland into the United States. Of course, remember, he also seems to have designs on Canada. Mark Carney would have a very different view on that.
Absolutely. And while you say that this is his single biggest achievement that he wants to add to the history books, it could also be one of the biggest geopolitical errors by him. But we'll come back to that, Mr. Smith, because I want to ask you, at Davos, is he looking for a deal or a spectacle that keeps allies on the defensive?
Me first? Well, I think Donald Trump is looking for a deal. Donald Trump will take as much as he can get. And if he can get all of Greenland, as he has said he wants it, he will take it. But I think this is going to be determined by the steel in the spine of European and other NATO leaders. Now, Mark Carney and the French Premier, Mr. Macron, have been very strong in their statements. Keir Starmer of the United Kingdom so far has been a lot more diplomatic. But we don't know, in fairness, what conversations are going on behind the scenes. But look, Donald Trump is a schoolyard bully writ very large. And I'm 63 years on this planet now, and I was brought up to stand up to bullies. And if you do not stand up to a bully, if you give them what they want, they will not respect you. They will toy with you like a plaything and they will disrespect you. And I think we have seen enough of Donald Trump that if we do not stand up to him and treat him with strength, which is the way, by the way, we also need to treat Vladimir Putin, that he will walk all over us.
It's interesting you say that, Mr. Smith, because some of these very countries had another stand on Venezuela when action was taken there. And of course, they have another stand on Greenland. But I'm going to come back to the question on London as well, how London's going to react after I ask you this. Which European red line matters the most here, Mr. Smith? Territorial integrity, NATO unity, or trade retaliation?
I think territorial integrity is what matters most, because Donald Trump currently is blowing apart a rules-based order, which, although it was not perfect, gave us the greatest period of peace and prosperity since the end of the Second World War. And the one thing, and Western leaders made lots of mistakes over the last 80 years, and there's lots we have to do better. But the one thing that the rules-based order stood for is that you do not, a stronger country does not simply march into a weaker country and take what it wants. And if the United States, the most powerful country on earth, and the former leader of the free world, that is now very much up for debate whether they can claim that title. If the United States is to simply annex Greenland or take it by force, that blows the rules-based order apart completely. And I think that would be a great tragedy, not just for Europe and the other NATO allies. That will be a great tragedy for all of the world, India in particular, who is...
All right. So let me understand from you then, Mrs. Smith, are European Union leaders drawing this red line because they think Donald Trump could act, or because they fear the precedent of even entertaining this?
They feared the precedent of even entertaining this. As I said, I'm not sure if anybody can predict accurately whether Donald Trump will actually go ahead and take Greenland by military force if he has no other problem. My view, my assessment as a very modest, former diplomat of a short diplomatic career in Ukraine, is that if our leaders stand firm and stand up to Donald Trump, we have a saying in the United Kingdom, Echo, Trump always chickens out. And I believe if he is faced with absolute force and resolve, that he will back down and he will settle for something less.
So very quickly, two questions for you. Does London then risk getting squeezed, sir? Pressure from the US on loyalty and from Europe on solidarity?
I think there is a risk that London gets squeezed. And of course, the other thing that we must remember, Britain currently doesn't have an independent nuclear deterrent without the cooperation of the United States. And of course, the fact that that the UK left the European Union with Brexit in 2016 complicates that matter. There are a lot of people, and I am certainly one of them, that says our future, we are part of Europe, and our future lies with Europe. And if I can say one more thing, in the American National Security Strategy, which was published just before Christmas, it is made very, very clear that Donald Trump is no longer Europe's friend. He has Europe in his sights, where he talks very openly, or that strategy talks very openly about working with what they call patriotic, for that I would say far-right parties in different countries where they have a very, very similar view. But Donald Trump hates the EU. He hates the EU because there is no single European country can stand up to Donald Trump. But united, the EU can stand up to him.
All right. The bottom line before I let you go, just a one-sentence response because I'm running out of time. Is this a bluff, a bargaining tactic, sir, or a genuine strategic objective?
It's a bargaining tactic, and how it turns out depends on how strong European and other NATO allies react to it.
All right, Mr. Smith, pleasure having you on the show on Breaking Ground. We, of course, will try and connect with you over the next few days as we see all that unfolds in Davos while Donald Trump is there and after. Thank you for joining me on the show.
Thank you so much.